Ladies and gentlemen, stop your frivolity. Sorry, frivolity. I can't see anyone with this. It's lovely, but lost that whole side of the room. Good morning. I'm Neil Williamson, and I serve as president of the Free Enterprise Forum, a privately funded public policy organization focused on local governments of Central Virginia. In this role, I have the pleasure of working with the Blue Ridge Home Builders Association, the Charlottesville Area Association of Realtors, and the Charlottesville Regional Chamber of Commerce. Their extensive volunteer leadership on public policy at all levels makes our governments that much stronger. Not coincidentally, these are the sponsors for today's event. Please give our sponsors a round of applause. I would also like to take a moment to thank the Hillsdale Conference Center team, specifically Brent Woodard and Lauren Graff, for coordinating today's logistics. I'd also like to thank the professionals from Dem Keys Boys for catering this morning's breakfast. After our program, the buffet will remain open and there will be to-go boxes for those that want to share with your office mates. I also want to recognize my friend, Virginia Realtors Vice President of Government Relations and Political Operations, DJ Spiker. Thanks for coming from Richmond, DJ. And I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize someone who used to sit in the cheap seats with me in the Lane Auditorium and now sits on the dais, Whitehall Supervisor Ann Malik. For background, CAR members will head to their day on the Hill on January 15th. You can sign up on the portal if you're a CAR member. Blue Ridge members and I will be meeting in Richmond for their day on the Hill on January 28th. The Virginia Chamber Day on the Hill is February 4th. Today, we have two of our three members of the legislative delegation. I got word yesterday that Delegate Callsen was not feeling well, and so I'm anticipating that that bug, which is going around, did not go away. So our best wishes for speedy recovery. But we will be accepting audience questions via note cards that will be arriving soon. This is the National Press Club method, whereby you write down your question. They'll be stationed in the back and up front. Bring them up to Lauren, then we'll read the questions that we have time for. The 2026 year session is going to be an important, long, and different year for the General Assembly. With a new Democratic governor soon to be residing in the executive mansion and holding the veto pen, this session will likely see several legislative proposals that were vetoed in previous years return for another try. It's appropriate that we are at the Pancakes and Politics event because at this point, much, if not most, of the legislation is still being drafted. Some have called this the sausage-making time. As most in the room know, this legislative process is an iterative process. The bill that gets introduced very rarely looks like the bill that eventually gets voted on, and even after it gets voted on, sometimes it gets changed before it's signed by the governor. Anyone who follows the Free Enterprise Forum knows our pro-business philosophy. It's through that lens much of the legislation is viewed. I am happy to report that CAR, the CAR Foundation, and the Blue Ridge and the Home Builders Association of Virginia and the Free Enterprise Forum have joined forces with many other advocacy organizations in the Commonwealth Housing Coalition. This laser-focused group seeks to increase housing supply through better zoning. That's more than just good housing policy. That's good economic development policy. We continue to believe we need more housing everywhere for everyone. Respecting property rights is a key element of Virginia's high ranking as a business location. Advocacy is a marathon, not a sprint. As such, most of you recognize some of the most important battles that we'll be seeing in Richmond will not be based on the proactive legislative agenda that we're putting forward, but rather playing defense, protecting business and property rights regarding other bills that are passed. These defensive battles, and Delegate Callsen. We hope you're feeling better. Oh, welcome. She can always blame it for falling on her head. Without further ado, I'll be turning our meeting over to our legislators who will provide 3 to 5 minute introduction and statement of their legislative priorities for the session. After that, we'll get to some specific questions. One of the best things about our General Assembly is our part-time legislators. As such, these members often have other business they schedule outside of the General Assembly session. To that end, I regret Senator Deeds will not be able to be with us for the entirety of the program as he is due in Nelson County Court as an attorney, not a defendant. We're going to turn first to Senator Deeds for opening statements.
Thank you so much.
Now it's working.
Before I go further, I want to say for our DJs on part, go Dukes. I went to my first Madison College football game in 1974. They were playing Bridgewater College. And it's hard to believe that they are now on the national stage in the national championship. So congratulations. This is going to be an interesting legislative session. I've been through a bunch of them. We've got a new governor. There'll be a whole lot of new ideas put forward, and I look forward to the time. But I want to tell you that it's going to be a challenging session. My priorities will stay the same. I'm focused on healthcare, focused on mental health. I'm focused on a lot of things that you won't see a lot of new stuff from me. But here are our challenges, some of our challenges. Coming into this year, before we even get to the new things, we have a $900 million price tag for re-benchmarking K-12 education. That's just updating our funding based on the student enrollment around the state. And that's still about $1 billion short of what JLARC says we need to be spending on K-12 to fully fund education, to take pressure off local property taxes. That's one thing. The second thing is we go through a process of reforecasting Medicaid. We know that Medicaid, of course, is a program. Listen to this. 70% of Medicaid dollars are spent on people who are also eligible for Medicaid, because Medicare costs, as you know, reimbursement is low for nursing homes. So this is not just a Virginia thing. This is a everybody thing. So 70% of Medicaid dollars are spent on Medicare recipients who are nursing homes primarily. But our reforecast for Medicaid is $3.2 billion over the next, say, 30 months. So those are two things we have to come up with. If we are going to conform our tax code to the changes that have been made in the big beautiful bill, we'll sign on July 4th. That's another $700 million. It's not going to be available for us for budget. We've got new SNAP costs as a result of the big beautiful bill that are mostly connected to our error rate. We have an 11% error rate in the Department of Social Services statewide. We've got a real problem. It's going to take money to fix that. We can fix it, but the cost that we're going to have to pay because of the new administrative burden that's put on the states is between $90 million and $355 million this year. About $700 million every biennium after that. So the big beautiful bill that cut taxes, and for some people it's going to cost Virginia and other states a lot of money. And that's the first set of challenges we have this year, trying to figure out how to balance the budget and move Virginia forward to the extent we can. There will be a whole lot of bills that are put forward. I would tell you, don't get too excited about too much of it, because there will be this, even though the Democrats control both the House and the Senate and the governor's mansion, the same sorts of checks and balances that exist all the time are going to continue to be there. And so it will be an exciting session. I look forward to it. I look forward to your input the whole way, and I look forward to seeing you down there. Thanks.
Great. Delegate Callsen.
Hello, I'm Katrina. I represent Charlottesville and rural Albemarle, where we're sitting right now. I recognize a lot of people in the audience. Sorry, I think I'm seeing Jono's wife right there. So tell Jono I say hi. I used to be on the school board with Jono. So I sit on finance, county, cities, and towns, and the courts. And where I probably have the most overlap with the work that you guys do is county, cities, and towns, because we do a lot of the zoning, a lot of those type bills. I will tell you my general philosophy is that local control matters to me. I used to be deputy city attorney for Charlottesville. I can also tell you that I am trying to get off county, cities, and towns. So we'll see if I'm still on it this year because I've had about enough of local government. So I might be on a different committee. This year, I think we're going to get into, and you do such a good job at previewing and knowing what's in store in the session, but I will just tell you like a quick shooting them off. Legalizing the retail market for marijuana. Anticipate that happening in 2026. That could have some impact maybe on housing and how people think about it. There are some things that are being debated there about how it's set up. Energy, it's going to be a big year on energy. Housing, I do think it's going to be a big year in housing. If I could classify it, I would say it's probably going to land in the sphere of tenant-landlord relationships and kind of right sizing. Well, I would say right sizing, I guess it depends how you think, but right sizing that balance a little bit of tenant rights. Guns, I think there's going to be some things around responsible gun ownership. I think that's going to make some movement this year. And then lastly, tax reform, just because of all the reasons that Senator Dees just laid out. We're like in a budgetary, optimistically, I would say a new zone with budgeting. But honestly, it's probably a little bit more of us having to figure out how to restrict things, figure out how to fund our existing programs and get new revenue. And I'll tell you, for me, that's going to be looking at efficiencies in our current system. I have a really big pharmacy benefit manager bill that I'm excited about, trying to just get some money back into the state, and well, I guess people say, and out of the hands of healthcare people who have some issues just with how our healthcare system works. So that's the work that I'm going to be doing, and I'm happy to dive into it as we continue. And sorry for being late.
Delegate Laufer.
Okay. Anyway, good morning, you guys. It's always really fun to be here. And I want to just give a shout out to Neil, who I think does a fantastic job. I will say we get a lot of groups that either organize something like this or come up to Richmond or over to Richmond. But you guys are the most prolific, and Neil is the most prolific on organizing everybody. So it's amazing. I won't echo all the things because those are all the things that I think are going to happen. I'm on agriculture, education, and finance. I'm always working on recycling. I think it's like so critical that we try to be, not creating more waste. So I have a lot of bills on that. Again, I call it the circular economy. Several states are doing it already, where you set up a board that's going to be organizing all of the collection sites. We have a lot of, I can't believe I'm talking about this, but I am, solid waste. We have a 160-page report about it, and now let's go do it. I'm going to have a couple of things on the energy. I know we're going to talk about that, biosolids, gun violence prevention. So a lot of, as Senator Deed said, things that were vetoed in the past are going to come back. And I think it will look a little bit different. All of our language is going to be a lot tighter this year, I believe. So anyway, I look forward to working with you and hearing your questions.
Great, thank you. Our first question's going to go to Senator Deeds. As Delegate Laufer mentioned, and Delegate Callsen, we've heard energy, especially data centers, will be a big issue this session. Others have indicated that housing legislation will also loom large. With Democrats in control of the legislature and the governor's mansion, what specifically can the state do to impact the lack of affordable housing for both ownership and rental? And how might regulatory reform fit into this issue? What, if any, legislative initiatives are you sponsoring or co-sponsoring this session along those lines?
Okay, that question took a curve away from where I thought we were going to talk about data centers. But let me tell you, with housing, for a long time, housing, the only place I heard about housing was in Charlottesville. Everywhere else, nobody ever raised the issue. Now the issue is raised everywhere I go. And Amherst County, in Amherst, everywhere, people talk about housing. This year, I think there will be a bill. I know there will be a bill to basically aimed at taking some authority away from local government. Because in the past, my view my answer has always been, that's primarily a local responsibility. Our responsibility is to fund the Housing Trust Fund, put enough money. We've never had sufficient funds in the Housing Trust Fund. Our responsibility has been to do that, and we haven't done it. But this year, there will be an effort, I think, to take some responsibilities away from local government and to make sure that housing gets built. I don't know how well advanced that effort will be. I don't know whether it's been talked about in wide circles, but I expect that it will come. If you want to talk about data centers, we can do that too. Here's the reality. Data centers right now are 84% of economic investment in Virginia. They're here and they're going to be here. And there are other states that are seeking them out. And so there's been a real discussion. Part of the reason data centers, we have a tax exemption. We exempt them from certain sales tax for equipment they purchase for data centers. It's worth about $980 million a year to the state. The JLARC report, or not JLARC, but the Department of Tax, if you look at the 2008 or 2009, when the bill granting the exemption was enacted, they said at max it's going to cost the state about $125 million. So they grossly underestimated the impact of the data centers in Virginia and the impact. There was a JLARC report about 2 years ago or a year ago that said that the data centers are basically paying their share of the cost. They're paying their share for electricity and for infrastructure. There are going to be a number of efforts, and I'll have some bills aimed at making sure that data centers are energy as efficient as possible and rewarding efficiencies. Last year, the tax exemption expires right now in 2035. Last year, there was effort, and I think it was primarily spearheaded by the Speaker of the House, Don Scott, and by the governor. It was a bipartisan effort to extend the tax credit to 2050. And I said, well, we can extend it, but it has to be tied to energy efficiency. We have to know that you're doing the most you can to pay for the electricity in the electric infrastructure to support the data centers. So we traded those off, and neither one of them passed. There will be a similar discussion this year, I think.
Thank you. Delegate Laufer, your thoughts on affordable housing production and data centers?
Thank you. That's not a big topic at all. I think in terms of, I always wonder in terms of what, land use is obviously the number one issue, right? Where are we going to put all the housing, data centers, and energy? And I do think there's going to be a lot of discussion about those three topics and land use and how it affects local government. Honestly, it's such a balancing act, I think. And, I totally agree with Senator Deeds about making sure that the data centers are energy efficient as possible. I'm on the State Water Commission. We just had a report about, someone brought a great idea, which was that you should have the data centers actually collect all their water and then have them treat it itself, and it would be a closed loop. But the amount of water we're talking is millions of gallons. I mean, it might not be feasible to have a cistern either that large or have enough water come off their rain. But I think these kind of engineering solutions are so critical right now. And I totally agree with Senator Deeds. The data centers are not going away. Every single one of us is walking around with a phone right now. And without even knowing, you're probably using generative AI unless you turn it off. And by the way, if you don't turn it off, you are consuming like 300 times more energy than if you had just written that text by yourself. So this is, just multiply that out. And obviously energy is going to be critical right now. The only limiting factor for the data centers is energy. And the data centers are also part of a global kind of movement right now. This is the new kind of national security effort. And Virginia being smack dab right at the cusp of these two lines, one coming from Europe, one coming from Africa. For the internet, 80% of the internet is going through our airwaves, really. So I think we're going to see a lot of movement there. I would say for my part, I've been carrying a bill called PJM Transparency Bill. PJM is a consortium of 13 states. and you might have been seeing them in the paper recently. Their name is coming up more and more. And thank you, Senator Deeds, for reminding me what that stood for. It's Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland. So there's a group of legislators from these 13 states. We meet almost weekly to talk about how to get more transparency from PJM. Because as we know, we are the largest importer of energy from PJM. And they are the ones that are deciding where throughout this 13 states we're going to create energy, transmit it, and distribute. They're a major part of that, as well as Dominion. So my bill is to make sure that there's transparency throughout the process, because when they go to the meetings that are the very beginning of the discussions of how to have a distribution, creation, and transmission, those votes don't have to be taken. And there's no record of it. It's really difficult also, I will say, to even just attend the meetings. They are public, but there's so many hoops that you have to go through. So there's been a major effort on making sure that they are as transparent as possible, because we want to make sure the ratepayer, the average ratepayer, doesn't have to consume the cost of the data center. And that was one of the bills we tried to do last year, which is if you are a large consumer of energy, your rate is different. I can say for the smaller energy companies like APCO, the co-ops, they're making data centers actually create their own LLC, so that they have to be in charge of all of the infrastructure that's going to need to go into that data center, so that the ratepayer isn't bearing the brunt of that. I think this is going to just consume a lot of us. And I think we should just know that, if we don't do it, they're going to go to West Virginia, or they're going to go to North Carolina. That is really the truth. And as Senator Deeds said, it is the #1 GDP growth in our state, and quite frankly, the nation. We had our appropriations and finance retreat just a couple of weeks ago, I think, right? And the national, kind of information we got was, it is national security. It's a really big deal. So, but trying to do it thoughtfully so that people are not having to bear the brunt of the price or even your environment. So I think there's going to be a lot of discussion about that.
Delegate Callsen, your thoughts?
So I'll run through some of the housing things that I'm expecting to see. Albemarle County put forward as a prime legislative, I'm blanking right here, that's because I slipped and fell, legislative priority that they would like to give localities the ability to pursue basically what they classify as slumlords. So basically bring that action to court to make sure that they can protect them. So you, Board of Supervisors, Dan Malik, I see right here, I anticipate that will be coming by Cia Price. There's going to be bills to extend the period for pay or quit, probably from 5 to 14 days. I think that's going to have some traction. I'm going to have a bill that's about bringing a warranty of habitability as an affirmative defense for non-payment of rent, so that people who are in unlivable conditions don't also have to pay that rent, get a new place to live, go to court and figure that system out. They could at the very least raise in court that I didn't pay rent because it was an unlivable situation. Lots of things like this that I imagine are probably going to be shared with you. I also will say, I think rent, I think it was called anti-rent gouging, probably the last go around, but you can refer to it various ways depending on how you want to message it.
Rent control.
Rent control might be another way that people put it. I think in one version it was like a anti-slumlord. That's when you're really trying to lean the other way. I anticipate that is going to be brought. I do not, if I could read a crystal ball, I don't think it's going to pass, but I think there'll be some meaningful work on it this year to see what that looks like and see if it could be permissive for localities. So that's all in the housing. Data center, they just summed it up real nicely. We're the #1 center for data centers in the world. And I just went to this conference in Germany and it kind of changed my thinking. There's only 2 things for data centers. One, it should not affect ratepayers or rates to pay for data centers energy. And 2, for me, it's environmental. And one thing I realized when I went to this trip with Germany, there's like one legislator from each of the southern states. They want data centers so badly. So we can be as high and mighty as we want to be about what it's going to look like to have data centers. If we go too far, they're just going to go over to West Virginia where they're going to be relying on like coal energy. At least we're one of the only southern states that has a Clean Economy Act that has some actual standards for what energy production looks like. And so I would say, I think a lot of us are thinking about how to boost up the Clean Economy Act, how to make sure that we're protecting clean energy as a vision for Virginia. I have a bill around distributed generation. You guys might like it because it helps get people solar on their houses in places where they want it. So that's how we're tackling that.
Great, thank you. We're going to provide Senator Deeds one last question before he has to run off to court. In previous sessions, the prohibition of single-family only zoning was proposed and failed. Do you support such an effort statewide? And what about your thoughts on statewide faith in housing, also known as Yes in God's Backyard, or eliminating parking minimums, which Charlottesville did last year?
Okay. First off, let me just say thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm being a legislator is an incredible honor. It's a full-time responsibility, but only a part-time job. So I was in court in Allegheny County Monday, Bath County yesterday, Nelson County today, Charlottesville tomorrow, and Orange County on Friday. And I'm trying to do some legislative meetings around that. I've never been on a local government committee in the all the years I've been in the legislature, so I've never been on the front lines with respect to the housing issues. I think that there will be an effort, as I said, there will be efforts to undo some of the localities' ability to say no to certain types of housing. And I think this single housing, I mean, from my perspective, you ought to be able to do what you want to do, you know, and I don't know that I would favor a one size fits all with respect to housing or a lot of things, honestly. I don't remember the last part. I got wound up and I was.
Parking minimums and Yes in God's Backyard.
Okay, the God's Backyard thing is allowing housing built on church property, and I think if a church wants to do that, I think they ought to be allowed to do it. I think that I don't have a problem with that. Doing away with parking, I think that ought to be decided on a local basis. But I certainly understand the argument that we built our communities around one form of transportation, cars, and it's time for us to think about something that a more multimodal sort of ability to transport from one part to the other. So I want to listen to the arguments. So I don't really like the idea of restricting localities' decisions to make those kind of decisions, our ability to make those kind of decisions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Same question to you, Delegate Callsen.
Yeah, yep, I would echo what I said in the beginning. Are you leaving, Senator Deeds? Thank you for being here. I'm like kind of jealous that you said you've never had to do the local government committees. I'm working. It's a fun committee. I've done my time. So I would echo what I said in the beginning, which is that I believe in local control, local autonomy, local authority. I think they're the best able to assess the needs of what they have going on. If you're talking about, I was trying to think what single family use zoning bill it was, and I'm thinking it was maybe Salim's. Are you talking about ADU, like a mandatory ADU?
No, it's mandatory to allow ADUs.
To allow ADUs. That bill was illuminating for me because, well, one, you know, his definition of ADU was quite large. It was like 200 or 2,000 square foot, which was basically, that's a whole second house that you would be able to build by right in your backyard. Which then people came up and rightfully pointed out that, 100 or 1,000 places in Virginia where that wouldn't work for a variety of reasons, because they might not have the sewer, they might not have the facilities they need to support a whole nother house in every plot. So I would say I'm supportive of that bill in so much as it looks like localities should come up with some kind of policy around ADUs, because property owners should be able to do things with their property that they would like to do. My neighbor dug into, I shouldn't put him on blast, but he literally dug into his hill in the backyard and he made I'm whispering because I'm like not supposed to reveal it. He made like a mother-in-law suite in his backyard, basically by just digging in, and then ran into all these issues. That feels a little wrong. Like if you can fit someone into your house and your space and it's for your mother, I don't feel like you should be running up against the law doing that with your own property. So I've talked a lot, I've talked too much, I'm gonna blame it on this, everything's blamed on this, the fact that I fell on the ice. But favor local control while balancing the fact that I think property owners should be able to do some things with their property that they want to do.
Thank you. Delegate Laufer?
You know, I would say part of why this keeps coming up is because there hasn't been enough housing. There hasn't, you know, like when I talk with we have to meet with all the board of supervisors. I have 4 counties. When we talk about why the question is about local authority, it's because of that. We need more. A lot of counties and cities will have a comp plan, and guess what? They only actually fulfill 20% of it. And that is what continues to contribute to the housing crisis and, quite frankly, now the energy crisis. I would just say about that, I am totally in agreement with the locality, but at some point we have to build. It has to happen. And the reason people are asking us to do something about it is because it's not happening on the local level. So I think it's a balancing act, but you know, it's not reasonable for somebody to have had a site plan not even looked at for 6 months when you submit things. This is not acceptable, especially when it is in the comp plan, okay? Like, I think that is critical. And I know one of my colleagues will be bringing up things like this, which I've been honestly trying to work on too, because we have to have more, clearly. And the other thing I think that we're not understanding, I think, is that this new generation, they might really not want a single home. You know, many of them aren't getting married right away. They're not having kids right away. I mean, we have a plummeting, you know, population right now. They actually like living in a condo. They actually like living in a tiny home. You know, their idea of what it is to be the American dream is really changing. You know, they value quality of life over a lot of other things. And, you know, so I think we have to understand that changing demographic and how can we support doing that. And part of it has to be that if we have a comp plan, part of it has to be built then. And we have to be more responsive to the people that are trying to build these things. We can't have them on the hook for 6 months, a year, 18 months. That's why we have a housing crisis, because it costs more money then. So I'm not on, you know, I told you my 3 committees, but I would just say that is how I think about this as we're going forward and looking at legislation.
I want to echo that. I think that's a great answer. I think that would, can I make that one mine as well?
Oh, I feel like I'm on Family Feud. Good answer, good answer. Next question goes to Delegate Laufer. The Virginia Realtors are putting forth a effort. We don't, again, we're in the sausage making phase, don't have sponsors yet, don't have real language, but the goal behind it is to increase housing supply because we have folks stuck in homes, older folks that just can't get out of their homes. So the realtors are bringing forth state capital gains tax relief, provide temporary freeze or reduction in the state level of capital gains for home sellers. What do you think of this concept? And do you have other ideas that can help increase the housing supply?
I just told you some of my own ideas, but I'm sorry, Neil. You know, I wasn't aware that you got, you know, I will say this, we have to pre-file our bills by, I think it was December 1st. Yeah. So at this point, we only have ability to file 5 more bills, as you know, right? Yeah, yeah, that's correct. So I love this conversation, but it really has to be a lot earlier. So I know through the federal HR 1 bill, there is a huge tax reduction on capital gains. I actually want to say it was like maybe 37 million. You know, it could be that high. But I think any way that we can help people be in a home that they want to be in. I think one thing we never really talk about is our aging population. I can say I've knocked doors for decades, okay? Most of the folks are, you know, I really think the opportunity here is for us to create more availability to people that are aging. And them living in a congregate space helps in so many different ways. Transportation to medical, and to socialize. I mean, we know that that's major for quality of life. So, I mean, I guess what I would say is I would be open to, when we're talking about these issues, looking at the whole spectrum. As we just said, this new generation has a lot of different things that they want than is different from the more senior population. I am the chair of the Disability Commission, and a lot of the issues we have with disability is the same as aging. Trying to help people age in place, move into the next phase of their life. I can tell you just personally, my dad is just moved into a hospice. My father-in-law is looking at moving into an apartment because, he doesn't want to keep doing these stairs. So when we're looking at these massive developments, especially up on 29 there, I can't remember which one I just saw, they didn't even talk about the fact that they should be ADA compliant so that we can help our seniors be in a home. And those would be the kind of places you'd want to be because they are congregate. So I would just say I'm open to hearing really any kind of idea that can help people be in the type of home that they would like to be in.
Delegate Callsen?
I've not heard of that, but if you find a patron, I imagine I will. And I imagine I will see some of you guys come into my office to talk about it. I would need to learn more. There have been ways that people have tried to use the tax code to incentivize to incentivize construction of housing. I can tell you that Charlottesville, one of the bills actually I put in on request of Charlottesville is a land value tax, so kind of a bifurcation of the tax rate for the land versus the value of the structure, with the hope that they can do some kind of taxation that will incentivize people who own pieces of land in highly valuable areas to develop on it. I had a bill last year that was around allowing affordable housing to have a consistent income-based approach to their taxation. So there's a lot of creative things happening there. I'm supportive of them. It kind of depends on the bill and what it looks like. And I will be looking forward to see what that one looks like.
Because of HR 1 and its implications to Virginia's economy, I want to say that I think any kind of tax reform is going to be a little bit tough this year. Because what we can see is the revenue is dropping, as we've lost a lot of folks up in Northern Virginia that had high incomes paying into our state economy. So I will just temper that with, this is great, but I think it's going to be a lot of discussion if we're going to try to do some kind of tax rebate or something.
Yeah, taxation is not really going to be so much this type of stuff. I think it's going to, just so we can give you the preview, it's going to be about income tax, I think. I sat in a session, I'm on the Marijuana Retail Market Commission. All kinds of jokes happen during that commission, pretty wild audience there that comes and speaks. So it's a little bit different. But we got a presentation from TCI, and it said the expected revenue for the state from taxing the marijuana market, which we think is going to be kind of the savior for our budget, it's like $61 billion a year for the state. It's less than what it costs to construct a school. It is not the solution. The effect of right-sizing our income tax, right now we have a flat rate. You get taxed the same as a millionaire as you do if you make $17,000 a year. If we right-size that, it can be done in a way that it's not, it can be done in a way, unless one of y'all is a billionaire, which if you're a billionaire, you need to get on my call list. But it can be done in a way that it's not even really affecting us in this audience. That's like a $1 to $5 billion way that we can bring revenue into our state. So it's just like multitudes of difference there. And so I think that's where taxation is going to be looking at, kind of bringing up to speed our income tax. So that's where the work will be done. I don't know how much it will be done in the nitty-gritty of this, but there's a lot of bills. We'll see.
We'll see. I did want to touch on one item that is what I call the elephant in the room now when we talk about regional meetings. And a number of folks at this front table were engaged in this $4.5 billion investment on North 29 of AstraZeneca. That coupled with Eli Lilly and Merck's investment, plus the education investment that's being made by the state and the companies, will have a dramatic impact on our region. generational impact on our region. The question, one of the reasons I believe AstraZeneca was positive for Virginia was our right to work stand. And right now, right to work is a hot button item. And the governor has said, well, I'm for it, but I might look at some edges to adjust. What are your thoughts on right to work? And I'll go first to Delegate Callsen.
First, I want to give a shout out to Emily right here at the table. AstraZeneca, the development that's happening on 29 right now, although again, I'm blanking. Emily, what's the name of that whole compound? What are we calling it? Rivanna Futures. The development that's happening on Rivanna Futures is in large part due to the foresight of the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. AstraZeneca, I think, examined over 50 sites in Virginia that they were, or 50 sites that they were considering, and they landed on us. And that means something. I know AstraZeneca might not be everyone's favorite company, but they create drugs that help save people's lives. I know people that have struggled that their drugs are helping. And more important, they bring jobs and money. And ultimately, people need money to live in our country. They need jobs. This is how we have upward mobility. So thank you, Emily. I think that's great. And Ann. It was Ann as well. I can also tell you that I went to the opening and I'm sitting there thinking, why do I know this guy who's sitting next to me? Like he's looking from, it was Dr. Oz. I had not watched any of his shows, heard some things, but yeah, so he was there. That was a pretty interesting little ground opening ceremony. Right to work, you know, I think there's a way that we can promote development, that we can promote business growth, and we can be respectful of workers and their rights. I mean, I think my grandpa and how he saw upward mobility from working, literally he told me how he used to eat chicken legs. I don't even know that they have, like chicken feet, apparently have meat, like that's what they ate. So farming in rural Stafford, all the way up to working for Print Pack, which had a union, which allowed him to get into a home, a single family home in a community. That's what it means to me. And so I do think there's a way, a respectful way to balance workers, unions, workers' rights, while still respecting business growth. And so I appreciate what Abigail Spanberger had to say, and I'm curious where she would go. I would not disagree with her on that. Wouldn't.
Yes, please, Amy.
The other thing I would just say is Virginia is really attractive because we have great education system here. Like that always comes up as a place why people want to invest here. Our K-12s are excellent. Our higher ed is yeah. Oh, that's right. Through Consumer Reports, I think they just said UVA. And Virginia Tech. The reason I think we're having so much talk about workers is because, as we said, there's a decrease of demographics. We know that population is getting smaller. We have an increase of AI, which is, I've gone to several AI conferences. I mean, the technology is not quite there yet, but it's getting there. If you go into McDonald's right now, you're probably not going to order through a person. There's a kiosk there. And people are getting more and more used to this, right? And because of that, workers' rights are in a bind, right? So I think I appreciate what, Governor-elect Spanberger said. I do think this issue is not going to go away, though, because there's pressures from the bottom and from the AI situation. And I can just say, I think that we've created an environment in some level that is so hostile, both to a worker and both to the employer. And we have to get to some kind of agreement here. One cannot exist without the other. And I think that's why this discussion is happening. And this issue with AI and what it will do to our employment is just going to be huge. And if you don't mind me just saying this, my daughter is about to graduate college, and every single interview she's had starts first with a test. Can you answer all of these questions? And the only way you know if you've gone all the way is the max time you can have is 2 hours. And it's a progressive test, right? If you got the last one right, then you're going to get the next one. So she's been doing fine on that, actually progressing to the entire end of it. The next level of the interview is a chat bot, where she has to record herself talking to a bot for 30 seconds for each of the questions. Then if she's okay, now she can get into maybe a Zoom call, okay? So this is happening in real time, you know, and anyway, I could talk about AI and how it's transforming several of our education, be one of them. So I think the reason we are having this discussion is because of those two pressures. And I didn't even mention immigration, which I also think is really putting a lot of pressure on our employment as well.
Well, the last question I have today focuses on something that I believe every locality that I cover has in their legislative agenda, which is the sales tax referendum. The Regional Chamber of Commerce recently adopted a pro-referendum position. That's not saying they're in favor of a tax, they're in favor of asking if you want a tax. That particular legislation has passed in the last, I believe, 3 sessions and passed very bipartisanly last session and was vetoed by the governor. Do you have any predictions on the outcome of that? And I'll start with you, Delegate Laufer.
I get the easy one. Well, I know Delegate Callsen carried that bill. So if you're not familiar with what it is, it allows localities to put a 1% sales tax that is revenue that is strictly for construction of new schools, or I'm hoping renovations of schools as well. But so that was a bill that, by the way, passed many years ago for different localities because of the Dillon rule, of course. Localities have to ask permission kind of from the General Assembly. So we already have this ability in a couple of the counties, red and blue, by the way. And so this was just expanded for the whole state. And, you know, this was not one of the talking points that Governor Youngkin would have wanted. So this, and by the way, as Neil has said, this is a referendum. So you're going to be voting for it on a ballot if it passes. And I do believe it will pass. You know, I won't go into all the pressures on K-12. They really need this. I will just say that. And if you live in Albemarle County, you know that we are bursting out of the seams, especially I think, well, actually Western and Albemarle, to be quite frank. Anyway, I think it'll pass.
Delegate Callsen?
Yes, I can't say anything concretely, but it's going to pass. It's going to pass. It passed with 2/3 of the vote last session. It actually was originally brought by a Republican. It's completely permissive. Your locality would have to ask for it, and then it would go to referendum to you. It's constrained to just school construction, and it is one of the only ways that localities can really have to fund school construction in an adequate way without taking out bonds or really doing these 15 years capital improvement plans. So yes. Even the short answers I managed to make long, but yes, I think it will pass.
Thank you. I was remiss in not mentioning, we have a school board member here, Realtor Emily Dooley. I also was remiss in not mentioning someone else who was critical in the AstraZeneca piece. The Economic Development Authority Chair, Don Long, is here as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that's really all the time we have today. I thank you for being here. Please sign up for your respective days on the Hill. I'll be in Richmond a lot in January, you can probably tell. If you've got anything you want me to relay to these guys, they get sick of seeing me, trust me. Thank you all and have a good day.